NPB infielder Kazuma Okamoto will be posted this offseason, and yes, the Marlins should be interested.
You are Locked On Marlins, your daily podcast on the Miami Marlins.
Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Welcome into Locked On Marlins. I'm your host, Jeremiah Geiger. I'm a diehard Marlins fan, and I've podcasted about the team for the last 4 seasons. You can find me on Twitter at Jeremiah Geiger too, and thank you for making Locked On Marlins your first listen of the day. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, which is your team every day. Make sure you're subscribed to the YouTube channel, and let me know your thoughts in the comments section. Today's episode is brought to you by FanDuel. Right now, new customers can bet just $5, and if your bet wins, you'll get $300 in bonus bets to use across the app. Download the app today. And on today's show, I'm going to tell you why Kazuma Okamoto, a Japanese professional infielder, could be the answer to the Marlins' long-term plans at first base. He's going to be posted this offseason. He's going to be available for Major League Baseball teams to sign to a free agent contract, and he could be the guy that the Marlins go after. So who is Okamoto? Where did he come from? Why is he an attractive free agent target? And why would the Marlins be interested in signing him? Well, let's answer the last part of that question first. The Marlins should be interested in signing Kazuma Okamoto because they need to improve the roster. They need some significant changes from the 2025 roster if they want to compete in 2026. Look, it was a great season. It was a fun season. We saw a lot of improvement across the board, across all levels of the Marlins organization. The minor league prospects were impressive. We saw the major league team have a 17-game win improvement. Impressive breakout years from Kyle Stowers, Edward Cabrera, Augustin Ramirez emerged. But at the end of the day, this team didn't make the playoffs. This team finished with a losing record, 79-83. And so for 2026, the job of the front office should be, let's go out and let's compete. The rebuild, the tough part that happened in 24, where they sold everybody at the trade deadline. Everybody was traded, it felt like. That part's over. Now it's about building. Now it's about supplementing the young core that you've established and giving yourself a chance to compete in the National League East, which we'll talk about later on in the show. And there's a couple holes on this roster that clearly need to be addressed. And number one is first base. First base is the biggest hole on this roster. I would say that the 2025 Marlins weakness, the main weakness, was at the corner infield spots, third base and first base. And I would put first base as the number one weakness over third, because I think I like what I see from Graham Pauley defensively, and I have hope that the bat is going to continue to improve. And he's going to be in a competition with Connor Norby, whom the organization still is holding out hope for. That maybe Connor Norby, Graham Pauley, one of those guys can win the job. Maybe they platoon, and third base is taken care of internally. But first base, that's the position that the Marlins have made clear they're going to look externally to address that spot. And so Kazuma Okamoto, yes, he's played 60% of his games in the NPB at third base, but he's really good at first as well. He can play first base, and he's an impressive defender that is going to be a free agent, that is a power hitter, and the Marlins need power. The Marlins need a high upside, offensively minded first baseman. Simple as that. So if they're not going to spend the money on Pete Alonso, if they're not going to go out and spend on Josh Naylor, go after Okamoto. So Okamoto's played in the NPB since 2018. That was his rookie season. And from 2018 through 2023, he hit at least 30 homers in every season, including a 41 homer outburst in 2023. Then he went to 27 homers in 24 before dealing with injury this past season in Japanese professional baseball, which, it's the Major League Baseball of Japan. Like I said, a lot of talented players play there, end up coming over to the majors here in America and have a ton of success. So, yes, the numbers are impressive. Yes, we also shouldn't take it that, this is going to be what he does right off the rip, right off the jump. He's going to come to a major league organization and hit 35, 40 bombs. He could. I'm not saying he can't, but they're two different leagues. So we always have to keep that in mind. But what I really like about Okamoto's profile is he's good defensively, number one. Number two, he's a power hitter. He's power over hit tool, which I'm fine with because the Marlins lacked power at first base. Eric Wagaman hit a grand total of 9 home runs across 514 plate appearances. That's not going to cut it. I would expect Okamoto to be in that 25 to 30 home run potential. Maybe upside for more if it all comes together, because we don't know how good he can be. He hasn't played in the majors yet. Now, his strikeout rate and his walk rate are also what really makes me interested in the Marlins pursuing him in free agency. So his strikeout rate this past season, now he dealt with an injury, only 270 at-bats, 13.3%. Minuscule. Very good strikeout rate. Great plate discipline. He's got a career walk rate of 10.8%. So he knows how to work an at-bat. He's a disciplined hitter, and he's also a power hitter. He's not going to strike out, 200 times a year and still give you 25 bombs while hitting 210. He's not that Chris Carter from the Astros. That's a throwback right there. He's not Chris Davis. He's a more disciplined profile, which I think the Marlins value. They value that aspect of a player's offensive profile a lot, is plate discipline and the ability to give yourself disciplined at bats. Now, he is a pull hitter. He's a very pull heavy hitter. I read that his spray chart resembles Isaac Paredes, who is one of the, I guess, more not, what's the word for it? Just heavy pull hitters in all of baseball. And will that continue in professional baseball here in America? Maybe so. Maybe they get him to have more of a balanced approach to all fields. But the calling card is his power. And what also makes him attractive is that low strikeout rate and good walk rate. He's not the number one name in this free agent class. The number one guy that everybody's been talking about is Munetaka Murakami, who's also a corner infield guy. And Murakami's going to command a larger deal. Murakami is going to command more money, but he also, this past season, struck out 32% of the time. So could Murakami be a star? Absolutely. But for the Marlins, given that Murakami's not in their budget and also a less disciplined hitter than Okamoto, it makes so much sense to go after him. Jeff Passan said that Okamoto will end up getting a shorter term deal than Murakami, but Major League Baseball teams still view probably a deal about at least $50 million as being realistic for Okamoto. $50 million, let's just go $55 million. Cut it in half between 50 and 60. $55 million is what it would take to sign Okamoto. That's in the Marlins budget. Don't make a mistake about it. They can do that. Bruce Sherman opened the pocketbooks a couple years ago and signed Avisail Garcia to a $53 million deal or $54 million, one of those. Okamoto, I would be fine with that because it's a sign to commit to a position of need. Is it taking a risk? Yes, but the upside is huge. You're addressing a position that needs power. You're getting one of the best power hitters in Japanese baseball, and he has a chance to come in here and immediately make an impact with the Marlins. Now, Japanese players typically don't sign with with teams from Florida. Like, let's be honest. When's the last time the Marlins signed a free agent from Japan that played in the majors? I can't even think of one since I've been a fan. I've been a fan since I was 12 years old. Watched this team every single season. They haven't done that. So this is a chance to break that narrative of, being absent from that market, a change of the guard. We're ready to compete, and we're signing a big name free agent. It's going to be interesting. Keeping tabs with Kazuma Okamoto, trade rumors, all the websites, saying which team is going to be interested in Murakami, which team's going to be interested in Okamoto. If I see the Marlins name in there, I'm going to be very, very hyped. Coming up next, if the Marlins do sign Okamoto, if they sign Josh Naylor, whoever they sign to address this major league roster, and I really hope they do, they're going to need to. They have a chance to compete in the National League East. I'm going to tell you why right after this. Let's be honest, most of us can't even name all our financial accounts, let alone what they're worth. Between 401ks, savings, and investments, it's easy to lose track, and that can mean leaving money on the table. And that's why there's Monarch, an all-in-one personal finance tool that brings your entire financial life together in one clean, easy-to-use interface on your laptop or your phone. It can help you organize your accounts, track your spending, and get a better handle on your investments without ever having to touch a spreadsheet, and who wants to deal with those anyway? Monarch's visual dashboards and smart tools make it so much easier to understand where your money's going and how to make it work harder for you. So don't let financial opportunity slip through the cracks. Use code LOCKEDONMLB at monarch.com for 50% off your first year. That's monarch.com, code LOCKEDONMLB for half off your first year. This episode is brought to you by PrizePicks. Every day we make decisions, but on PrizePicks, being right can actually get you paid. Don't miss the excitement of this football season with PrizePicks, where it's good to be right. Playing PrizePicks is such a fun, simple way to add more excitement to football. You just pick more or less on player projections. For example, Josh Allen's passing yards. You could do Saquon Barkley rushing for a touchdown, Jamar Chase and his receiving yards. So probably a good chance to hit if you go out and pick Jamar Chase. I'm just saying, that dude is a target monster. So it's quick. It's simple. You can make your lineup in under a minute. And one of my favorite parts of PrizePicks is the new promotions they're doing. One of them is the injury reboot feature. If your player leaves early and doesn't return, it won't count against you. So download the PrizePicks app today. Use code LOCKEDONMLB and get $50 in lineups after you play your first $5 lineup. That's code LOCKEDONMLB for $50 in lineups after your first $5 lineup. PrizePicks, it's good to be right. I appreciate all the everyday listeners who tune in to Locked On Marlins throughout the week. The Marlins could compete in the National League East if they improve the roster, if they don't stand pat, but they actually take initiative and action and spend some money. Then this division, who knows? They could shock the world. They could shock the world. And maybe that sounds like I'm being too much of a homer. Maybe that sounds like, I'm completely and utterly biased. But those of you guys who watch the show, you know how it is. I call it how it is. I call the balls and strikes as I see it. I'm not saying the Marlins are going to win the division, but I do think that they could be sneaky and be competitive in the National League East, certainly for a wild card. And if everything breaks right, maybe for the division crown. A season ago, the Marlins finished, let's see here. I got to scroll up here to my notes, 23-29 against the National League East this past season. So that included records of 7-6 against the Nationals. Should have been better. They got swept early September, should never have happened. 7-6 against the mighty payroll New York Mets, and then 4-9 versus the Phillies, 5-8 versus the Braves. And the Marlins finished ahead of the Braves in the standings, but for whatever reason, feels like it's been this way as long as I've been a fan. The Marlins just have trouble with the Braves. The Braves, year in and year out, have the Marlins number. And in 2025, it was the same thing. Same thing, different year. Think back to that 5-game set in August at Truist Park where the Marlins dropped 4 of 5 at the worst time imaginable. That can't happen again. So if the Marlins want to compete, they're going to have to do better against the Braves and the Phillies in particular. I think they can against the Braves. They have to buck that narrative. They have to get the monkey off their back and play better against Atlanta. As simple as that, because in 2025, this past season, the Marlins were a better team than Atlanta, but they still couldn't get it done. So head-to-head record matters, yes. But when I look at the roster shakeup of all the teams in the division, I think the Braves are at a crossroads. They just got rid of their manager, Brian Snitker, who stepped down. I mean, it was time for him to go. We still don't know who they're going to hire. You have the Nationals, who I think are in the middle of a failed rebuild. You know, we saw James Wood and Mackenzie Gore come out of the farm system from the Juan Soto trade, and they're major leaguers now, and the Nationals just still aren't good. I don't think the Nationals are a serious threat. I don't think they're in a position to compete, and I think they're closer to rebuilding again than they are even making the wild card. The big ones for me, the Mets and the Phillies. I don't think the Braves will be as bad as they were a season ago. I think they have a lot of talent on their roster, but it also does feel like, you're getting a new manager. You're a few years away from the World Series. You finished 76 and 86, 10 games under 500. There might be some signs of, hey, our window is closing and we're going to have to reset and reevaluate as a franchise. For the Marlins, it feels like the opposite. They're on the upward trajectory. The Mets and the Phillies, they don't seem to be going anywhere anytime soon. Now, the Mets, because their payroll, they're always going to have good players. Steve Cohen is the owner that essentially has a blank checkbook waiting to be filled out. He's going to spend in free agency. He's going to make trades. Does it necessarily translate to success? Well, no. We all saw that. Go rewatch the last series of the season in which the Marlins took 2 out of 3 and ended their season, by the way. If you forgot that high payrolls don't always translate to success, go rewatch that series. Go rewatch the entire second half of the Mets season, for that matter. It was utter failure, a collapse. Will that happen again? Maybe, maybe not. Maybe they're this loss this season stings and they have some bad mojo heading into next year, and even with the heavy payroll, they can't get it done. The Phillies are the X factor for me because I think, with Kyle Schwarber being a free agent and certainly no guarantee of him signing back and an aging roster, the Phillies could be a little bit vulnerable, where the Marlins could, take a couple series here and there. And then you suddenly look at the end of next season, and they're a lot closer to the Phillies in the standings. And who knows? Maybe they pass the Phillies in the standings. But I think 4-9 against the Phils, I think that record improves. I think it does. The Phillies are an aging group of veterans. Trey Turner, He's dealt with some injuries now. Bryce Harper dealing with some injuries. No guarantee that MVP candidate Kyle Schwarber is going to return. There's no guarantee of that happening. JT Realmuto, he had a down season offensively. It wasn't that great. Now the pitching for the Phils, that's where they're elite. Christopher Sanchez coming off of a terrific Cy Young caliber season. Jesus Luzardo had ups and downs, but for the majority of the time, showed why the Phillies went out and traded for him. No, terrible trade. We get it. Hopefully, Starlin Caba proves that, he can be an above average all-star caliber shortstop. That's what I'm banking on. Otherwise, it looks like the Phils clearly won that trade for the time being. Then you have the return of Zach Wheeler. I mean, he dealt with a blood clot issue this past season. So how will he look in his return in 26? There's a question mark there. Their window is definitely closing. And I'm not going to say it's closed yet. I still look at the Phillies as the favorite in the National League East. But sometimes the fall from grace is sudden. And that's how it is in sports. Think about, well, this example just came to my mind for NFL fans out there. When I was a kid, the Vikings, 2009, Minnesota Vikings, Brett Favre, they're one win away from the Super Bowl. They're one bad throw from Brett Favre away from the Super Bowl. The next season, injuries, inconsistencies, they finish 6-10. That's just how it works in professional sports. And sometimes the fall from grace hits you really hard. Happened to the Red Sox a few times. In 2013, they win the World Series. A couple years later, they're not doing so well. It's just how it is. I think that day could be approaching for the Phillies, and the Marlins is the team that I feel the best about long-term right now, apart from the fact that the Mets always spend money. The Phillies have a higher payroll, but in terms of a young, hungry team that could surprise some people, look out for the Marlins. The window is open. This window is open right now, and the Marlins have to capitalize. I'm going to talk about that right after this. This episode is brought to you by FanDuel. The NFL season is here, and FanDuel has an offer you don't want to miss. Right now, new customers can bet just $5 and get $300 in bonus bets if you win. That's right, you pick a bet, put down $5, and if it hits, you'll unlock $300 in bonus bets to use across the app. FanDuel's great because it gives you so many ways to play. You can build parlays, try player props, and even follow the live lines during games. Now, the World Series is starting on Friday. The Dodgers are favorites, I think minus 215. So if you're feeling risky, you have a hunch that the Blue Jays just continue playing great baseball and the offense continues to explode. Maybe for game one, you choose a Blue Jays win. You have a Vladdy home run. And then for the series, you could have the Blue Jays winning it all and get some money. Whether you're a casual fan or you love diving into the stats, FanDuel makes the game day experience so much better. So what are you waiting for? Visit FanDuel.com to download the FanDuel app today and get started. Let's be real. Making excuses doesn't solve anything. We've all heard them before. It's just stress, I'm tired, or it happens to everyone sometimes. But when it comes to performance, sometimes your body just needs a little extra support, and that's where Rugiet comes in. Rugiet.com offers fast-acting, doctor-prescribed treatments for ED, designed to help you stop making excuses and start making moves. Rugiet makes it easy to get started. You just connect with a board-certified doctor 100% online, no awkward waiting rooms, no in-person appointments, and if prescribed, your treatment ships discreetly right to your door. The process is fast, it's simple, it's private, and it's all handled by real doctors because it's all about connection, confidence, and getting back to the moments that matter. So visit Rugiet.com/LockedOnMLB to get 15% off your first order. That's RUGIET.com/LockedOnMLB. And don't forget to use our code LockedOnMLB so they know we sent you. Rugiet, stop making excuses and start making moves. A reminder, Locked On Marlins is free and available wherever you get your podcasts. If you're watching on the YouTube channel, hit that subscribe button. And if you're on a road trip, you're at the gym, I appreciate you tuning in. Whatever you're doing, wherever you are, the Marlins window is open, guys. It's open. This is not the Marlins of yesteryear. This is not the Marlins of 2024 from 2 seasons ago, which everything seems so bleak and hopeless. And honestly, it was a horrible season to get through. I mean, watching a team 30 games under 500, like, what's the point? The farm system's not there yet. We don't see the vision, but time heals all wounds. And I think 2026 can be the reason that more casual baseball fans in Miami, in South Florida, across the country, across the world, get back into Marlins baseball, and they're going to make you believe again. Now, what is that going to take? What does that entail? I think the Marlins are going to compete. I think they should compete. It's going to require staying healthy, which is not just luck. It's about the training regimen you put yourself through in the offseason. It's about, the weight room. It's about spring training, getting your body right, ready to go, conditioning. So health is a huge factor. But number 2 is, will this young core of players continue their upward trajectory and not just meet their numbers from a year ago, but surpass them? Can Agustin Ramirez get better? Can Kyle Stowers, as crazy as this sounds, can Kyle Stowers get better? How about Otto Lopez? Otto Lopez is a big one for me because he's a shortstop. There's no clear player that's going to take over his job anytime soon. He's the guy. How does Otto Lopez respond after a 15 home run season, but an OPS under 700? He's got to get that OPS back up there. He was an unlucky hitter, but there's certainly things that he can do to just, reestablish himself without a shadow of a doubt to everybody that, hey, I'm the guy. You don't need to go sign a shortstop. You don't need to trade for another shortstop. I can be a shortstop on a competitive team. So that's going to be a major storyline next season, is the ability and the opportunity of these players, of this young core, to avoid regression and instead pursue persistent development, getting after it every day, and let the results follow. The pitching staff is a big one for me as well. The bullpen, that has to be addressed. It has to be addressed externally, yes, but internally. When Josh White makes his debut, how does he look? Ronnie Enriquez, terrific first season with the Marlins. It was incredible. Lights out. Now he's pitched a lot. Pitched in 60 plus games, almost 70 games for Ronnie. So 2026, get right back after it. You got to stay healthy, but you got to continue to be effective. No regression. Yeah, 69 games for Ronnie. I know he's resting his arm. He's getting ready for next season, but pitchers and catchers are going to report before you know it. We're going to wake up one morning. It's going to be mid-February, and the guys are in Jupiter. This offseason flies by. The World Series is just starting. It felt like the Marlins season just ended. Now the World Series is starting. So for the bullpen, how do you address it externally? How do guys respond internally? Because in order for this to all work, we can't have a situation where, I'm trying to think of an example. You can't have a situation in which you expect success from your core of players, and instead it's the complete opposite. And everybody takes a step back. CJ Stroud, the Texans. Another NFL reference. I know this is a baseball podcast, but bear with me. I was just talking about this yesterday. CJ Stroud, his rookie season, successful, makes the playoffs. The expectations heading into his sophomore season were, man, this guy could be a top 10 quarterback. Maybe this guy is a top 10 quarterback. And then what's happened? The last 2 seasons, it's been going down. It's like a snowball effect. It's like you roll this snowball up a hill and you get to the top of the hill very quickly, and then you push it down and it starts to tumble down, 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 and all of a sudden you're like, well, I thought we were on the right path. What's happened? That's the worst nightmare for Marlins fans, is regression from the existing core. We can talk about Kazuma Okamoto, and that's a viable conversation to have. We can talk about Josh Naylor. We can talk about signing Devin Williams and having a bounce back season from him, or a Ryan Helsley. We can talk about, Robbie Snelling making his major league debut and being excited for that. But especially on the offensive side, with the hitters, the guys that got to score runs, something that's plagued the Marlins for years, got to capitalize, continue to develop. I think this coaching staff knows that. They know it's all about development and not taking steps backward, because this window could open. It is open. And the Marlins, if everything works together, they can be competitive for a playoff spot. That's going to do it for today's edition of Locked On Marlins. As always, I appreciate you guys tuning in. Until next time, stay safe, stay locked on, and let's go fish.